Okay, but would you say that the Benin Kingdom has recovered fully from the invasion?
Um, yes. Um, yes. I would say yes because one thing we want to know is that when the second dynasty started in Benin Kingdom, the first 12 Obas, now I'm taking it from Oba Oromia, because our present Oba, His Royal Majesty Oba Ey the second Ogidi Grand event, said we should start taking the history of the monarchy from Oromia. So from Oromia up to Wafiokun, that is the Oba before Ey the second. We have 12 of them, and they were quite under the control of the Uzama So we can call them the pre-imperial Obas. But from Oba Ey the first up to Oba Ovorame, 24 of them were imperial. They had control over life and death. Then after them, we had four of them. The fourth being our present Oba, Oba Ey the second. So what I'm trying to establish here is that there had been that continuity in terms of succession by that same family, ruling family. That has not changed. 1897 did not truncate it. So one cannot say, oh, let's cry over that. We cannot cry over that. Rather, we are happy and there's continuity in terms of succession by primogeniture. And number two, the objects that were carted away to England, over 3,000, over 4,000, depending on how you want to take it, were produced by guilds which had been in existence since the Ogiso period. The Ogiso era was the one who started this issue of bronze casting. But the guild system was introduced by Oba Ogwola in 1280 AD. 1280 AD. They organized them, released a royal charter for the establishment of guilds, over 50 of them. And these guilds, these bronze casters, brass casters, wood carvers, ivory carvers, were producing and transferring that knowledge to their children to continue. So there was continuity also in the production of these works. So when they came calling 1897 and left behind such destruction, they didn't destroy the intellect of the bronze casters. They didn't destroy the whole vision behind the guild system, because the guilds survived and continued the production. That is why post Ovorame, we still have, the ancestral worship where these objects are used as furnishings, as they were still being produced, and they were supplying the palace with such works. So there were works being produced after 1897. 1897 did not freeze in a historical perspective everything about Benin destiny or cosmology. Rather, they shrugged off, the effect of that attack. It was terrible as it was, and continued with the production. So most of what we have, even in our museum today, are the ones that are post 1897. And to all intents and purposes, they are artifacts, they are antiquities. And we have so many of them abound, even in the palace.
Okay, so you mentioned that the British were quite surprised that the people that they termed uncivilized were indeed artistic and they had really good craftsmanship. So what would you say is the cultural relevance of art to the Benin people?
The cultural relevance of art to the Benin Kingdom, from the relevance of art even in Africa. Art in Africa and in Benin also is not art for art's sake. It's functional act. It's act for utility. If an artwork is not functional, it cannot be an artifact. So when they are produced, they serve the purpose. The objects that were taken away, I forgot to mention also, one minus, about 1897 is that invasion and the theft of those objects was like a library being invaded, and the books or the bookshelves being emptied of their contents. That was what happened in 1897. I say so because the bronze casters acted as historians themselves. They were chroniclers of the history of the people. How is that so? They covered activities in the palace and represented them on plaques, on objects. The motifs, whether of high or low reliefs, communicated, told stories about what was happening, either urban in procession and all that. So a huge part of the history, a void was now created with the removal of those objects in 1897. That's why I said it was a minus. So our art is functional. Art. Benin art also is functional. So what they saw in 1897, the comments they made were no lies. Because up to date, if you look at any Benin work of art in the textbook, you discover that the finesse of production is great. The artistic genius oozes out of such objects. The Benin artworks are functional and are used for such various purposes, either as decorative pieces or as furnishings for shrines.
Thank you very much, sir. So a close look at the Benin artifact, like you said, they are functional, but they seem to tell a lot of stories, and it seems that they depict that the chiefs in Benin hold a very prestigious rank. So what can you say about chieftaincy in Benin?
Every chieftaincy, virtually everyone, flows from the Oba of Benin. There are some that are hereditary. Once given, the first son to take over because primogeniture as a system of succession is deep in Benin history. But every chief has a role to play in relation to the Oba of Benin. Where that relationship is severe, then that chief, they cannot really call him a chief, they say. You cannot be a chief on your own if he's not tied to the palace. So chieftaincies, chiefs are there to assist the Oba. Chiefs are there to provide support for the Oba. The Oba is numero uno, is a hub around which every activity revolved in those days and still revolves to date. You'd be surprised to know that in spite of the intrusion of modern governments and colonialism and 1897 that you referred to earlier, in spite of all that, the Oba is still unique. He's still held in high esteem. The sacrosanctity of the Oba echoes, not just in the palace, but echoes to other far-flung places in Edo State and across Edo State. So it's a very powerful. So all chiefs draw their essence from the Oba.
Okay, so we know that the massacre of 1897 led to the Great Loot, but it seems like in recent times, although the artifacts are scattered all over the world, there seems to be, a lot of people and institutions trying to repatriate some of these objects back to Edo State, Benin. So we want to know if is it out of the sheer goodwill of those in custody of the artifacts?
I want to say that the clamor for the return of these objects abroad has been strident over the decades. Hardly do you attend an academic forum where such things are not mentioned. People have clamored for their return. Let me give you an example. In 1977, we hosted the Festac 77, Festival of Arts and Culture. And the federal government requested for the Quinidea ivory mask to be used as the identity symbol for that festival. The British government declined our request, offering some excuses. We had to produce a replica, which is in itself now is an artifact. Because an artifact is an artwork backed by facts. So that replica that was produced in 1977 was backed by the fact that it served as a symbol for Festac. It's an artifact today and it's in Lagos Museum. So they didn't return that. So that would tell you how far people have been clamoring for that. But in 2000 and as early as 2010, good. As early as recent as 2010, a group of museum professionals came together, curators, some European curators, the NCMM representatives, representative of the Oba of Benin, and that of the and those of the Edo State government came together under the BD Dialogue Group. The BD Dialogue Group is a multilateral collaborative working group that comprised these people I've just mentioned. And since 2010, we've been holding a series of meetings, and the agenda has been return of objects, return of objects. We got to a stage that we now felt that discussions about complete return can only take place between governments. That we as curators were limited in terms of our powers to do that. They cannot just decide to pick an object, a Benin object, and say, come and take. I mean, the curators abroad. So they now felt, look, as curators, we could do exhibitions. Because in Nigeria, we can take even our antiquities here abroad for exhibition. So they'll be on loan. And they will legal papers signed for their return. Once the exhibition is over, they are returned. So we agreed that these objects could come on loan, to Benin. And papers are signed, and after a period can be returned as well. So we were tinkering with that idea when the German government, first of all, the Edo State government, the Governor Obaseki, attended one of such meetings in Netherlands. And there he said he would build a museum. Today, that museum is referred to is the Emowa, the Museum of West African Art, which he has been canvassing. And the idea of that is to see how, when the objects come, many of them can be housed there and displayed for the public, to see. That's how Emowa was birthed by the Edo State government. But along the line, the German government loved what they were hearing about our efforts, to receive these objects, and came on their own volition to say they will return objects to over 1,000 of them. And I must add that what we hear now is that from July this year, they will start coming after all the due processes must have been taken care of. So the Germans made that move first. That must be said. Even though the French President Macron, went to, I think, Ouagadougou and made pronouncement a year or two before then that the French government would return, objects. But the Germans who have made concrete efforts, not just bringing the objects back, is supporting in terms of funding the return of these objects. Recently, 2 of such objects were returned. My DG, Professor Abba Issa Tijani, DG of the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, joined the delegation that went abroad, and they received those 2 objects. The bust or head of an Oba, and of course, a cockerel. Where I'm seated now, at the background, you see one of the sample of the cockerel. So the 2 of them have been released to Nigeria. So at a ceremony at the Oba Palace, the deed of transfer was signed officially. It was a fanfare that was done. So those objects are as good as coming back to the Palace of the Oba of Benin. So moves are being made, efforts are being made, to bring them. Then speaking of the Emowa angle, before Emowa will come on stream, there's going to be an archaeological excavation that will take place at the site of the Emowa. As I speak, I have it on good authority that very soon, sooner than later, that archaeological excavation will start. So after that, then the building will take place. Of course, the National Commission for Museums and Monuments were there as agency of government to receive the objects.